biology superstars. Today we are going to talk about dihybrid crosses. Dihybrid crosses are tough, but once you understand them, you consider yourself a genetics expert. Up until this point, we've done monohybrid crosses. Mono means one, so monohybrid crosses look at one trait. For example, they might look at height, whether you have a tall pea plant versus a short pea plant. They might look at flower color, whether you've got red flowers versus white flowers. Or they might look at eye color, if you have brown eyes versus blue eyes. Dihybrid crosses are more difficult because they look at two traits. Di stands for two. For example, you might be asked to cross a tall pea plant with purple flowers with a short pea plant with white flowers. That cross involves two traits. You're comparing height, tall versus short, as well as flower color, purple versus white. Thus, dihybrid crosses are trickier and require a much bigger Punnett square consisting of 16 individual sections. If you take a look at our particular dihybrid problem, it's talking about dogs and it tells you black hair is dominant to white hair and long hair is dominant to short hair. It then tells you to cross a hybrid black heterozygous long-haired dog with a white pure long-haired dog. And then it asks you to determine the phenotypes of the offspring. Since there can be a lot of information in dihybrid problems, the first thing you want to do is sort through all the words and figure out what your dominant traits are and what your recessive traits are. So if you go back and read carefully, you notice that it tells you black is dominant to white and long hair is dominant to short hair. So I would jot down black over white, so I remember black is dominant to white, and then long hair over short hair, because long hair is dominant to short. I then need to consider what alleles I'm going to use. Well, since black is dominant, I'm going to use the letter B for hair color. And since long hair is dominant to short hair, I'm going to use the letter L to represent long hair. The next thing I need to do is determine the genotypes of the parents. This is a very, very important step, and you need to double and triple check that you do it correctly. When I go back and analyze the words, I first begin by looking at what it tells me about the first parent. In this case, it tells me that it is a hybrid black, heterozygous, long-haired dog. I know from my prior biology knowledge that hybrid and heterozygous mean the same thing. Two different letters. Hetero stands for different. So hybrid black would be big B, little b, and heterozygous long-haired would be big L, little l. If I then look at my second parent, it tells me that it's white with a pure long-haired coat. I know that white is recessive to black, so in order to have the white phenotype, it would have to have two little b's as its genotype, and then it's pure long-haired. Well, if it's long-haired, I know it has to have a capital L, and pure means the same. You're going to have two of the same letters. It means the same as homozygous, so I would have two capital L's to represent a pure long-haired dog. Like I mentioned before, this is a very important step. You need to double and triple check it, because if you get this step wrong, you're going to do all the work, you're going to put all that time and effort in, but you're going to get the wrong answer. So I go back and double check hybrid black. I put big B, little b, I know that's correct. Heterozygous long hair, I put big L, little l, I know that's correct. I look at the second parent and I see that it has a white coat color, and I know to be white it's the recessive trait, so I had to use 2 little b's, so that's correct. And then pure long hair would be represented by 2 big L's, and I know that's correct. So now I'm ready to move on. Step 3 is also a very, very important step. It's determining what possible allele combinations can be passed down from each parent. I start by writing down the genotypes that I figured out in step 2. So parent 1 was big B, little b, big L, little l, and parent 2 was little b, big L, big L. I know that for each parent, I will have 4 possible allele combinations that can be passed down. I need to make sure each allele combination contains an allele for coat color, so a letter B, and then an allele for coat length, letter L. So I start with my letter B here, and my first possible combination, I take the first B and go to the first L. So my first combination would be big B, big L. And then my second possible combination would be big B, little l. I've now maxed out my combinations with the first allele for hair color, the big B. So then I move on to the little b, and my next combination would be little b, big L, and then finally little b, little l. Those are the 4 possible combinations. If I do the same thing over here, my first option would be little b, big L. My second option would be little b, big L. My third option is little b, big L. And my fourth option is little b, big L. All that's possible for this parent to pass down is a lowercase b, it has no other option to pass down, and a capital L. This step is very important. In case you missed what I did, I start with the first one and combine it with the first letter, of a different type. That would be my first allele. It would be big A, big B. Second, I go here, I take the first letter and combine it with the last letter B. So my second option would be big A, little b. My third option starts here and goes right next door, little a, big B. And then my fourth option would be, little a, little b. So it's just showing you the different letter possibilities, the different allele possibilities that can be passed down. Once you've figured those out and you make sure they're correct, you are ready to move on to step 4. Notice you never get 2 of the same letter type. I never have 2 B's together, I never have 2 L's together. There's always 1 letter for each allele represented in each of these 4 possible allele combinations. The next step is setting up my Punnett square. It's got to be a big one because it's got to have 4 rows and 4 columns. One, 2, 3, 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. The first thing I'm going to do is take this parent and its possible allele combinations and put them down the side. So I would say big B, big L, big B, little l, little b, big L, little b, little l. And I double check that my handwriting's correct and I transfer those correctly. Next, I take the alleles from the other parent and put them across the top. Little b, big L, little b, big L, little b, big L, little b, big L. Not to worry, kids, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. We had some technical difficulties, so I had to redraw the Punnett square. But after you set up the Punnett square, putting the alleles from each parent down the side and the top, you then complete your Punnett square by filling in each box. I bring the big B over and the little b down, and the big L over and the big L down. Big B over, little b down, big L over, big L down. Now since these four are the same, the rows will be the same as you go across. As you can see, next row would be big B, little b, big L, little l. The third row would be little b, big L, big L. And the fourth row would be little b, big L, little l. As you can see, you always group together the like letters. The B's are paired up and then the L's, so you can make it easier to determine the genotypes. Because ultimately that is what the problem asks you to do, determine the phenotypes of the offspring. So you know there's 4 possible phenotypes. They could have both dominant traits and be black and long-haired. They could have the black dominant trait, but then be short-haired. They could have the white-haired recessive trait, but have the long-haired dominant trait. Or they could have both recessive traits and be white and short-haired. So, if I take a look at my Punnett square, and if I'm looking first for black and long hair, which I'm going to represent with these, black and long hair, okay, I'll represent these with like a dark square. So this one would be black and long hair, which means these 4 would be as well, because there's at least one capital B and one capital L in each box, one dominant allele for black and one dominant allele for long hair. This row as well would have the phenotype of being black and long-haired. Okay, so I know for black and long-haired I have 8. Black and short-haired does not seem to appear at all in this Punnett square, so I don't appear to have any black and short hair. Now these next 2 boxes I know have little b, so that means they're white, and they both have at least one capital L in them, giving them long hair. So I'll represent them with a circle. So these 4 in the 3rd row, and then these 4 in the 4th row would all have the genotype of white hair because they are little b, but it would be long-haired because they have the big L, and you don't have any white and short hair. So I know that my final phenotype would be 8 out of 16 black and long-haired, and 8 out of 16 white and long-haired. I hope that watching this video helped you better understand dihybrid crosses. Keep working hard and good things will come. Hope you have a great night.